This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
Greetings, Dog Pound Nation. Welcome to the Two Green Browns podcast, part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. I'm John Cahill, joined by Neil Dunworth today. You can check out all of our media output on brownsaccess.com. Before we get started, please go check out our friends, Zabo Apparel in Vermilion, Ohio, purveyors of the finest apparel in Ohio. Get online, buy their Support Each Other shirt. You will be helping out local families with that purchase. So welcome everybody to the show today. Interesting news day today. A couple of small little post-draft tidbits to get into, Neil. I suppose initially the first bit of news, we have David Njoku and Miles Garrett, their fifth-year options being taken up. Would not say any of this is a surprise, Neil.
No, it isn't. Don't think it was a surprise at all. Miles Garrett was a no-brainer. I think we will hear very, very shortly that Miles Garrett will be re-signed within the next year. I'd say probably even during this whole lockdown. I'd say they'll try and come to some sort of agreement with him. I'd say he doesn't even play this year on that 5-year, that 5th-year tender, that 5th-year extension. I'd say we get him a new contract before the year starts. And for David Njoku, yeah, he gets the stability of having a head coach that actually wants to play him as opposed to last year, somebody who pushed him to the side. But then again, we'll never know the full story there. So I would imagine that maybe he isn't fully innocent in all of the ongoings last year, but he may have been complicit in the hassle, I think is what I would say there. It takes two to tango. Like, you don't just get thrown into the doghouse for no reason.
Yeah, no, he probably had a little bit to say, I'd imagine, to Freddie when he was coming and going there. But that's all in the past now, Neil. That's all in the past. But the big news breaking this evening, as we're been chatting here, the return of I was going to do a real witty return of the Mac, but I couldn't make it fit, Neil. So return of Rashard Higgins to the wide receiver room on what looks to be an incredibly cheap deal, might I say?
Yeah, 910,000 is what Jake Trotter has said it is, which for me is mind-blowing. I initially thought that he was going to get maybe a $2 or $3 million deal, kind of like Alan Hearns got that kind of prove-it deal. And Alan Hearns is coming off a very, very bad injury, the one that he got with the Dolphins. But he seems to have signed only for 910K, which is essentially almost just vet minimum. And I don't know how the hell they talked him into that. But fair play to him. It sounds like he wanted to prove himself in Cleveland. He had unfinished business here. He likes an awful lot of the players here, and that was something that he felt he had going for him. An awful lot of time you see that wide receivers will go to another team, a la maybe Terrell Pryor, and they will sign their prove-it deal there, and then maybe not be able to prove it with a brand new cast of colleagues and somebody new throwing them the ball. So Rashard Higgins is taking this 910K deal, and he's going to have Baker Mayfield throwing the ball to him. And I think it's a smart decision, and it probably for the elongation of his career, because listening to Mary Kay Cabot and Dan Labbe and Scott Pasco talking about, they were actually only talking about this on yesterday's podcast that they had. There was kind of a feeling that maybe he had burnt his bridges with the Browns, and also that maybe he did it at the worst time possible, because with the level of investment that people have put into their wide receiver rooms, bar Green Bay Packers, in this previous draft, that he might have been an odd man out come the start of the season. But it seems that he's turned down money from other sources, more money from other sources, to come back here, prove himself with Cleveland, and see what the future holds there. I'm delighted to have him back. The way he tweeted, I'm sure you saw some of the tweets that he had during the actual draft itself. He was tweeting like as if he was still on the team, and he was delighted, and he was cheerleading for the Cleveland Browns, which should have been a precursor to everybody kind of figuring this out. But fair play to him. He seems like he's a top guy, and yeah, and I'm delighted to have him back on the team.
Indeed, and I think I have a hunch that maybe Richard maybe did not find the market he may have expected upon leaving the Browns. I think he may also value the relationship with Baker, and that he knows that Baker, on a 1-year prove-it deal, the best place he can be if they're going to throw them the ball is Cleveland Browns.
Well, the best place he could probably be on a prove-it deal is the Cleveland Browns. Second best place would probably be Green Bay. I'm sure that if Aaron Rodgers went in and smashed the table in front of Matt LaFleur and said, "I need a wide receiver," that realistically speaking, even though there's somebody that would be that kind of safety blanket for any quarterback in the league would be Rashard Higgins, because he's that kind of guy. He can go long-ish, and he's good over the intermediate and the middle patterns as well. So. But yeah, I'm delighted to have him here in the Browns. It also gives a different dynamic to this wide receiver room as well. So it gives it a more balanced feel, if that makes sense, because after the top two, like this morning when you woke up, after the top two, you had Ratley, Carterell Hodge, DJ Montgomery, and Donovan Peoples-Jones, and essentially that is 4 people we have no idea if they're any good. Spot players, essentially special teams players. Donovan Peoples-Jones, look, he had, for some strange reason, a very small minority of people on Twitter, whether they're actually Browns fans, whether they're actually Ohioans and whatever, they were giving him quite a tough time over being a Michigan prospect. And that's a lot of pressure for a young kid, especially when he didn't perform. And when he was a 5-star prospect, as everybody knows, and he didn't perform there because he had dog shit quarterback play. This signing of Higgins, for me, will allow him to develop at his pace and to be nurtured in the early parts of the season. Because remember, the fan base won't care. That element of a fan base that is giving out about Donovan Peoples-Jones already, they won't care that he didn't have a normal offseason with contact with his coaches, throwing time with Baker, route running the patterns that Stefanski wants him to run, and that O'Shea wants him to run. They won't care about that. If he drops 2 balls in the first game or maybe is found to blaze down and overrun a throw by 5 or 6 yards, they won't care. The knives will be out straight away. So we know that won't happen with Rashard Higgins. He's somebody that's in lockstep with Baker Mayfield already. And also, obviously, we've got Odell and Jarvis, who are going to be rehabbing an awful lot over this offseason too. We know that Rashard isn't. Donovan Peoples-Jones can maybe just concentrate on being the returner in the return game. Something that he did pretty well in college. And then it's going to be a straight battle between Hodge and between what's his name? Ratley, to see who gets the last place then in the wide receiver room.
So what you're getting to there, Neil, is I suppose it's a very, very, very early game of odd man out, musical chairs.
Yeah.
Right. So we're probably most likely going to carry 6. You have Jarvis Odell is 2. You have Rashard Higgins and Donovan Peoples-Jones is 3 and 4. And then you have 2 places. You have 2 spots left from Kaderl Hodge, Jojo Natson, Taywan Taylor, DJ Montgomery, Damien Ratley, and Jamon Moore.
There's going
to be a good position to be in. I'm actually putting Kaderl Hodge there as a 5 at the moment, just with the contribution on special teams, and then leaving 1 space open for Ratley, Jamon Moore, DJ Montgomery, Jojo Natson. I think Natson is gone because Peoples-Jones has that return ability. Maybe not at the same level as Natson.
I don't know. Is Natson gone? Because Prefer waxed about him, absolutely waxed lyrically about him.
DJ Montgomery was someone we were counting on as the 5th, 6th wide receiver last year going into the start of the season. Taywan Taylor is an experienced wide receiver in the league. So, like I said, we're in that wide receiver room is in Fantastic. Just looking at the tight ends here beside us as well. That tight end room and that wide receiver room are as good as in the league in the moment, I'd say. Just on paper at the moment, without a ball being snapped, like it's on paper, it's as good as what's going around in the league for depth anywhere. It's fantastic to have it.
Could it be a situation whereby, do you remember in 2018 we signed a predominant special teams wide receiver from Green Bay, Jeff Janis?
Yeah, Jeff Janis, yeah.
And we let him go. He didn't make the team on the 31st of August, didn't make the team. Like obviously Natson is earning what? Just Natson is only earning like 300 grand more than Rashad Higgins at the moment. So maybe he could go, but I just find it strange that Prefer has name checked him 2 or 3 times already. This is a Prefer signing for me. It's going to be strange. It's going to be really interesting. Does he become a Jeff Janis type, whereby he doesn't even see out the first training camp and make it past cut down day? I think what it does is it probably solidifies the fact that we're not going to have, and Carterell Hodge, they special teams all day long. So I don't think Ratley's going to be back, even though it's going to be interesting. They're going to have to stand up, and I don't know how they're going to separate themselves in a year with no offseason
when they're not training.
Yeah,
interesting.
Tyrone Taylor isn't a special teams guy. Like he was active more.
It's very early. It's very early for these conversations, and it's very early for power ranking the rooms, and when the guys haven't, and we haven't even taken into consideration the UDFAs in here. So I know there's a couple of interesting guys there that we have to dive into a bit more, but those rooms get a bit bigger.
Marcus Bradley is good, yeah.
Yeah, we'll definitely see. We'll definitely delve in a bit more.
Here's another scenario for you, John. Is this a precursor to the fact that potentially OBJ that Jarvis may not make the start of the season, maybe on injury reserve?
We're not stuck for depth, so it's not something I'd be concerned about. Obviously, I'd be concerned if Jarvis wasn't there, but like having a replacement, we're kind of, we'll get through a few games without him. It'd be great to have him there, but like looking at the depth there and looking at the reliance that we're going to have on the tight end room and the running back room, I think this is also something just to bear in mind for the future as well, with how contracts are going to go and how how money is going to be apportioned. I see money coming out of that wide receiver room in the coming year or two. For this year, great, fantastic. We have our guys there, but I definitely see money coming out of that room, whether it's Jarvis Hotel or whatever. It's more than likely going to happen.
You mentioned the running back room as well there, and we had 4 people in the running back room last year. So I would imagine that we probably won't carry 4 running backs this year. And the reason we did carry 4 was because Kareem Hunt obviously being on the exempted list. And then when he came back, we still kept 4 with Darnus Johnson and Dontrell Hilliard. I would imagine we probably only take 3 there, considering we're going to have Andy Janovich. Or maybe we might only take 2 plus Andy Janovich. It's going to be a real game of chess this year, even with the new CBA with 55 players. Obviously, one of them is going to be a lineman. Does that 54th player that isn't a lineman, does that become Jojo Natson? And then we still have 5 wide receivers. It's going to be really interesting. It's going to be a bit different, and it is going to throw up a lot more speculation. We have players in positions here that we would never have to think of before and think of their importance towards the scheme. And that's going to be really interesting over the next few weeks and months as we do get towards August. And I know it's only just coming into May at the moment. So we've got 3 months of trying to figure out and trying to see what way this front office works. And one of the first things Andrew Berry mentioned after the draft was that there's still opportunities. He mentioned post-draft free agency. He mentioned trades. He mentioned cut down. He mentioned people being cut between now and the start of training camp, whenever training camps are. So he was mentioning that he was on the lookout for these guys. So we could be talking about people that don't matter in the greater scheme of things, or we could be throwing more spanners into the works with how we would construct the roster between now and then. So it's really going to be exciting, and yet another great move from this front office over the off season.
Can't argue with that, Neil. Can't argue with that. And on that note, we'll leave it there for today. Thanks very much for listening. I would be very grateful if you could pass on the pod to your friends by retweeting or leave us a review. That would really help us out. Follow us on Twitter, myself at John Cahill _IRL and Neil at 2 Green Browns. And until next time, go Brownies.